Hello, and welcome to the strangest gig I've ever played, True Tales, from the studio and the stage. I am your host, Chris J. Norwood. On the podcast with us this week is Joe Morrison and Corey Pond here to talk about Jambaloo. The first annual Jambaloo is a free week of music happening at venues all across the Metroplex. It's a very exciting event. Can't wait for y'all to hear more about it. And let's dive in. Here is Corey and Joe with Jambaloo. Yes, welcome back. Happy New Year. Again, I am your host of the Strangest Gig podcast. My name is Chris J. Norwood. Hope you had a wonderful December. Hope you enjoyed the holiday season. Hope you had a great New Year. You're now back in the swing of things. Your kids are in school. If you're in DFW, you survived the Snowpocalypse 2025, and you're ready to get back to work. And you decided to turn on the Strangest Gig podcast to help you in your commute, to help you in your tedious task that you had to do for today, and I appreciate that. If this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, I would encourage you to go and check out some previous episodes. Had a lot of really awesome guests, really fun conversations, heard some really funny stories. If you're looking for a place to start, I always suggest starting with episode number 1, the very beginning. You can hear about my strangest gigs. They're pretty good. If you want to dive in a little further, jump to episode 6. Hear about guitarist Chris Holt and his pretty bizarre Bill Murray moment. It's one of my favorites. Our guests this week are Joe Morrison, an executive at Mullen Mullen Law Firm, and Corey Pond, general manager at Spune, a DFW promotion and booking agency. They're here to talk about the first annual Jambaloo. It is a very exciting event, free music all across the Metroplex, and they really dive in, and I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait for y'all to hear. So let's tune in. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Joe and Corey, thank y'all so much for coming on the podcast. I'm been looking forward to chatting with y'all. Tell me about, usually I start off with ask you what your current gig is, but tell me about the reason why y'all are here, which is to promote Jambaloo. So tell me about Jambaloo.
Well, I'm going to yield to Corey because his team is carrying the heavy weight on that, but it's something we're incredibly excited about and that we think is a really unique event that we're able to bring to the Metroplex.
And it is, I do think that it qualifies as a strange gig.
Absolutely.
Just especially because of kind of how it came about, which I'm sure we'll get into. But
sure.
Yeah, we're also fired up. I think we'll get into some of the details and answer some of the questions about that. But the way this came together is so strange. I think it's interesting. Joe and I have been friends for a long time, maybe 15 years or so.
And how did y'all meet?
Well, I used to own the Common Table.
Okay.
Or was the founder of it and was a major partner. And Joe and his kind of group of friends, including Shane, who he works with, were regulars at the Common Table, and we all liked craft beer. And so that obviously led to a lot of conversations. We also discovered early on that we both are like true, deeply affected music people. We have the curse that we love it, and nothing else really matters. Do stupid things that don't make sense because we love it. And so we went to a ton of shows together and just were friends. Like we never had a business relationship whatsoever. And then I kind of went a different way from the Common Table during COVID and was kind of, honestly just wandering aimlessly there for a little while. And I'm really good friends with the owners of Spune, Matthew Harbor, and Annette Marin, and they had been kind of talking to me on and off for a long time about getting me to come over there and join their team.
And they were also Common Table regulars, Chris, which is kind of funny.
Yes, yeah. Okay, that's how I met Matthew and Annette. And then the two of us created the Untapped Festival, or the three of us, sorry. and that kind of grew and was a thing. And then the Dallas Morning News bought it. And then I went to work for the Dallas Morning News as the general manager of that festival for them. And they later sold it. And then that was the end of that for me.
And Untapped, where was that festival at usually? At House of Blues, if I remember?
No, I know what you're thinking of though, I think. House of Blues did kind of a similar thing, but it was a different,
okay,
it was more local focused.
Yeah, my apologies then.
I don't know. It doesn't bother me. Untapped was the last several iterations of it were at Fair Park.
Okay.
And I think the last headliner was Big Boy.
Yeah.
The headliner before that was TV on the Radio, and before that it was Flaming Lips, Dr. Dog, Gogo Bordello, Cake.
Wow, yeah.
So it got pretty up there in the talent world. And it was awesome, and we had a lot of fun doing that, but we kind of all went our separate ways. And so they approached me in January. I mean, like, seriously approached me in January of this year. And I was like, okay, you know what? I love music. I have never really been full time in the music world, and it's my number one passion in life. It is how I spend my time and my money when I have extra of both. And so I gave it a shot. Well, and Joe and I are very close friends, and we play a video game probably 5 nights a week together online.
We're addicted, Chris. We have it.
Hey, that's a good. Yeah, there are worse addictions. That's a good one.
Well, we might have those too. So don't get just kidding. So we play Rocket League is the game that we play. And Rocket League's pretty simple. It's basically soccer, but with a car. And so you can kind of carry on a lot of conversations while you do this. Frequently, those were about music, or even we're both big Mavericks fans. So that's kind of all we talked about. Well, once the Spune thing came up, I started telling Joe about it. With no design on anything, just because he's my friend.
Yeah.
And it literally over like a 3-week period went from nothing at all, never having been thought of or discussed, to what it is now, essentially, which is a really big partnership that, I'm unfamiliar with anything like it.
Sure.
And Jambaloo is the centerpiece of that. It's not the only thing, but it's by far the biggest and most important thing in terms of time, money, focus, whatever. And initially, when we talked about it, it was kind of just the generic idea of, what's cool? Free Week is cool.
Yeah.
We should do one of those. And Spune has wanted to do something like that for years, but needless to say, it is impossible essentially to do something like that without either a ton of time or a ton of money.
Right.
And kind of you got to have both. And so enter Mullen Mullen, who has been an amazing partner and has really stepped up in a way that I don't think is normal, especially for a first year, unproven, unprecedented event.
Sure.
And I just happened to be new at Spune, so I hadn't gotten completely buried in the normal, day-to-day music business yet. So I kind of embarked on this crazy path without really knowing what it was going to end up being. And I think, we haven't even done it yet, but I can tell you that from where I sit, and I don't want to speak for Joe, but I think for them too, it has already blown past any expectations that we could have reasonably had for the first year.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean in terms of the partners that we have on board, the commitments that we have from really important and not financial ones. But having the city of Dallas, the city of Fort Worth, the state of Texas, that KXT obviously
Sure.
is a very big deal. And every single person that we've talked to, it's almost like a running joke now. Like we leave all those meetings, you're like, wow, I can't believe that went so well. Like they really seem into this.
Yeah.
And that's just been the kind of the story the whole way along. It's a little tougher, as you probably know, with agents and bands. They're a little more, I guess, hesitant on something that's unproven. But even there, I think we've had some good luck. Not what I expect that we'll see in the second year, but for a first year event, it has been incredibly well received. And that has, I think, put wind in all of our sails and help us to be motivated and feel like it's a good use of our time and money to go a little bigger in year one.
Absolutely. Well, you talk about this being the first year. Have y'all, and I think about a few, awesome festivals that this Metroplex has had over the years. I think of Index Fest and Homegrown Fest and, North by 35 up in Denton, some of those, but are y'all looking forward in the future? I mean, is the goal and plan for this to be a year over year event?
100%. And I think,
not just year after year, when we go into something, we're fully committed. So I think for both us, Spune, and all our partners, the goal is to be a better event
year over year,
every single year moving forward.
Sure.
Yeah. And when Joe and I talk about it, and when Spune and Mullen talk about it, we don't talk about it as, we're going to do it this year and next year and see what happens. I think it's pretty clear that everybody is, if you're in for one, you're in for three is kind of how we've all discussed this. So,
well, and what I love about y'all's event already is that it kind of, it ties in. I mean, there are venues all over the Metroplex, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denton too also, or just Dallas and Fort Worth?
No, Andy's in Denton.
Andy's in Denton. See that, and that's something that we haven't seen in as far back as I can remember. So that's something that's certainly unique and special to y'all's event. Was that a conscious decision going in instead of it being localized in one neighborhood to kind of have it kind of progress throughout the whole Metroplex?
I think it honestly was a happy coincidence the first time around, just because Spune has really deep relationships and in some cases partnerships with the venues that are going on now. But Spune basically is not the exclusive booker, but is the predominant booker at all four of those rooms and is, as close to exclusive as you can get.
Yeah.
So it just happened that was the case. But as soon as, it did occur to us to pick, let's just do Tulips and Dada. Those are the more iconic rooms. They have, a little bit different capacities. Dada now has a pretty cool outdoor stage that it didn't used to really have, or it didn't used to have the way that it has now. So that was a fleeting thought, is to kind of focus on a smaller footprint. But I think for Mullen and their goals, and then if you really think about what the purpose of Jambaloo is to kind of uplift the entire DFW music scene and community.
Absolutely.
And to give something back to all of the music fans, not just the ones that go to Deep Ellum. So once we kind of talked about it, there was never any doubt that it was going to be in as many of these as possible. And I think we have not made any decisions, but it would not surprise me if the second iteration may have additional venues beyond the four that are listed this year.
That's great. Well, and I love to see that, for years you've had the Fort Worth scene and you've had the Dallas scene and you've had the Denton scene, and there's been a little bit of overlap, but what I love about y'all's event specifically is trying to coalesce all that into one the North Texas, the Dallas Fort Worth Denton Metroplex music scene as one, cohesive scene, I think is a really neat thing to watch.
Yeah, I agree, and I think from every standpoint that you can think of, it has more weight, and it feels more impactful. That it's not, and nothing against a Deep Ellum festival; those are
Sure.
awesome, and they serve a very different purpose. But they also need to exist, and Deep Ellum is lucky to have the things that go on down there. But yeah, our vision for this is something much bigger than that.
Well, tell me, get into some of the specifics, get into tell me the dates, a few of the headliners, and then talk about the, it sounds like you'll have some like round table, type, things going on where people.
Yeah, you're referencing what we're calling the symposium.
Yes.
Which is going to be February 1st at Tulips. And it's going to be a discussion with already on the panel are the DOC, Bobby Sessions, both of who have Grammy wins.
Yeah.
A good friend of Shane and I's, Trey Nagella, who's a Grammy award-winning producer, will be on the panel. We have representatives from the cities that will be there. Chip from the State of Texas Music Office. So that's kind of the kickoff event.
Yeah.
Will be
Okay.
the symposium. And that kind of came about in a weird way, again, over Rocket League, not to sound like a total Rocket League nerd. But we were talking and somehow the word symposium came up and we're like, it's one of those words you've heard, but you're like, well, what the heck is that?
Yeah, exactly the symposium mean?
What does it mean? It sounds cool. And so we got into the dictionary, and sure enough, it's basically kind of a gathering where people have discussions with brief interludes of music or something similar to that.
Yeah.
And so then it just kind of clicked of, well, we're not going to put on a panel discussion, but we sure as heck can put on a symposium.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's how we'll kick off. And I think there'll be some really meaningful discussions that come out of that, that hopefully will be, that could lead to improvements in year two. I mean, we're going to be listening to feedback from people on the panel to how to, at least from Shane and I's perspective, how to try to help the local scene more.
Sure.
So we'll be listening for any opportunities where we can, provide additional support. And then there'll be a show after that symposium at Tulips. Mm-hmm. And then the following day, the week of shows will kick off.
Okay, great. And it's the symposium is February 1st, you said?
Correct. And the other, then it will be the 2nd through the 8th.
Through the 8th.
And I think Corey can confirm, but it looks like around 25 showcases and over 100 artists. And he can probably give you a breakdown more on local versus touring, which I think is also unique.
I think that's great. I love that. Now you've already mentioned Tulips and Dada and Andy's and Denton, and then Ferris Wheelers is the 4th, right?
Mm-hmm. And Ferris is kind of an interesting part of this story because Ferris Wheelers just so happens to be literally across the street from Mullen and Mullen's offices.
Yeah. And
so that was kind of what started all this. Is I'm telling them about Spune. I was like, I can believe this. They're putting shows. This is maybe too casual for what I'm doing here, but they're putting shows at this kind of kick-ass barbecue place that needs a lot of love, but it has a tremendous amount of potential. And once Joe knew that it was across the street, he's like, okay, well, is there a stage we could sponsor or something? And we quickly got past is there a stage we can sponsor conversation and got to the meat of it, which is what they want to do is to do things that really impact the scene, that are highly visible, that people can see, where there's actual, you can make a tangible difference.
Yeah. And
the music scene is big, but it's still small enough that somebody like Mullen and Mullen, which is at its heart a local North Texas small business.
Yeah.
That, it's a big and very successful small business, but it's still a North Texas small business that has always been here and has never done anything outside of here and is focused on this city. and the Metroplex. So for them to want to do things that help the music community in a visible and impactful way, and for them to want to partner with Spune to do that, obviously is pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
For Spune, because many of the goals that they have are goals that we already have, independent of this partnership. This helps us kind of broaden the horizon a little bit, and it lifts all boats, not just the Spune boats.
Sure.
But we couldn't be more excited about it. And back to the symposium. Sorry, I know I'm all over the place.
No, you're great.
It was really important to us. Another element was that we wanted to make sure that people knew from the very beginning that Jambaloo was not just going to be a bunch of free concerts.
Mm-hmm.
That there is more to it than that. And I think as it evolves and grows over the years, that'll become more evident. But in year one, we wanted to have some kind of event to convey to the media and to the consumer that, hey, we're serious about this. This isn't just a fun thing. It is a fun thing. We're going to have a blast doing it. It's a lot of hard work. But we also want to figure out ways to make a difference and to make this something that people from all over the United States care about, if they care about music. So we're fired up about the symposium. It's a big bite to take.
Yeah.
In the first year. I mean, Spune is a small business. We have 11 people that work here, and we will have 25 shows in this panel all in 1 week.
Yeah.
All spread out an hour drive for 1 hour. So we're going to be tired, but I also think when the week is over, people are going to have had a blast, and I think it's going to get some people's attention.
Absolutely. So I've had a lot of conversations on this podcast with different musicians just about the state of the local music scene, and not just as it pertains to Dallas or Fort Worth or Denton specifically, but just as local music scenes go across the country. And just as we've come out of COVID, there hasn't seemed to been that bounce back to people kind of going out to shows maybe like they once did. Is that something, Corey, that you've seen now on the promoter side? Is that something you're hoping to kind of shine a light on with Jambaloo and kind of get the local music scene back booming again?
Well, I hope so. There definitely was a period kind of in 2022 where I think everybody was blowing and going there for a little while, kind of right after COVID, where everybody just wanted to go out, and it seemed like every concert was sold out for about 6 months. But that went away pretty quickly, as you know. And we've had a lot of venues have closed. It's particularly true in Fort Worth, where Tulips has survived so far. I think if you really take a step back and you look at the overall Mullen Mullen music project that is kind of the big driving force behind Jambaloo along with Spune, there's a lot of stuff that's in there and that's coming that is not really just to help Spune. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, Spune is definitely a beneficiary of it. But I think as we go along, our sincere hope is that Jambaloo also reminds people how much fun it is to go see a show.
Yeah.
And in the real world scheme of things, if you have to spend $25 or $30 and you get that kind of experience, if you like music, you can't replace it, and you can't replace it for that kind of money. And I love to go, like Joe said. I want to go see Tyler, the Creator, right? Yeah. And spend $200 on a ticket, and I bet it'll be badass, and I'll feel good about the money I spent after I leave.
Yeah.
But it's still $200. And you can go to 8 Spune shows for one Tyler, the Creator shows, and not just Spune, Resound, or any of the independent promoters out there. And we just want people to remember that, hey, that's a hell of a good way to spend an evening. And I'm not saying it's cheap, but to go see live music and walk out the door for under $30 is a pretty good deal.
It is.
So we hope that it doesn't just benefit Spune, that over the longer term, putting DFW in a better place on the national map helps everyone.
Yeah. That's
and
great.
we're not alone in doing that. I think, even some of the folks over at the Kessler do some really cool stuff that
Absolutely,
helps the entire scene, not just
Yeah.
their rooms. So
And is your
we're
hope
hoping
that
to grow that further.
Yeah, absolutely. And is your hope by making this a free event that kind of like you said, re-energizes people and shows them just the value and the joy of live local music?
Yeah, well, we talk about all the time that Spoon, for better or worse, we have a big long list of people, but if you want to distill the list down, we probably sell half of our tickets to 10% of our audience.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that we don't reach.
Mm-hmm.
And for Jambaloo, and if you look at the partners that we have, and there's another layer to this, which is really important. Mullen Mullen is one of the biggest radio advertisers in DFW.
I've heard.
I've
heard the ads.
I don't know the numbers, but I listen to the radio, and I can tell you that there aren't many people that are doing more than they are.
Yeah.
Certainly, that is a locally owned small business.
For sure, yeah.
They're going to be using a significant amount of those ads from now until Jambaloo to promote Jambaloo.
That's great.
Into the I won't say amounts, but it would be a lot.
Sure.
It would be extremely expensive. Something that Spune or any independent promoter could never, ever do. Ever. It would never make financial sense to promote it at this level. So we're going to market the shows, of course, at Spune, but I think we're going to back off a little bit, because what we're really hoping is that there are people that come out to these shows that are not the normal people, that are new people.
Yeah.
That are people, maybe money is an obstacle. Maybe that's a reason that somebody not anymore. For a week, you have probably within 30 minutes of wherever you live, there is a free show that has probably 4 bands on it. And in many cases, 1 or 2 of those bands are national touring bands.
Yeah.
All the shows that we will have are shows that we would ordinarily sell tickets to.
Yeah.
And we're not paying the bands any different than they would ordinarily get paid. They are getting their full guarantees. Nobody's taking a break. So, it's really unique. I hope that people appreciate it, and it makes me happy that we're committed to more than just the first year, because you never know. But I think it really has a chance to make a big difference and to, in a very small way, change a handful of people's going out habits.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
And also, Chris, it's occurring at a time that's traditionally dead for the venues and for the artists, right? So part of this and the timing of it is let's take a time of the year where the bands are suffering a little bit and the venues are suffering a little bit, and let's change that into a good week. Absolutely. And so that's another thing we're excited about.
That's awesome. Well, now we'll get to the part of the show where I always ask, and I'll ask y'all as well. With you being avid music fans, and Corey, now you working on the promoter side, what's the strangest show that you've ever been to or booked?
Oh my! I don't know what's allowed to be said on here.
You can say whatever you want to say. Yeah, anything goes.
Okay, well, I'll give the Cliff Notes version of my favorite one. I was in Cooperstown, New York at Brewery Ommegang, because as I mentioned, I was a craft beer person, but I was also a music person. I was a huge Modest Mouse fan.
Yeah.
Modest Mouse played 2 nights at the brewery. They have like a 5,000 person amphitheater.
That's cool.
Frank Black opened one night, and I can't remember the other night. Legitimate band. Whoever it was, they were both great. First night I watched from the photographer's pit, which was super cool. The second night I watched on stage
Wow.
next to Isaac's guitar rack.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the story. The story is after the show, everyone that was special, invited, or whatever, I sold a bunch of their beer, basically. That's why I got to go. Went to the brew pub. Well, in the brew pub, me and a very close friend of mine who loved Modest Mouse at the same level are talking to Isaac, the lead singer for Modest Mouse, for like 30 minutes, mostly about sour beer.
Yeah.
How much he likes it. He is also interspersing, which I got to be careful here, some really unbelievable conspiracy type stories about people that are trying to murder him.
Oh.
Which I don't really, and I don't know, and he'll probably never watch this, but I never took it that seriously.
Yeah.
He just seemed like a little off to me. Well, anyway, he just leaves the conversation, and me and my buddy are like, "Holy shit! I cannot believe!" Like, we are sitting here talking to Isaac about craft beer of all things. Like, we didn't talk about this month. So when he leaves, this security man comes over and he's like, "Hey, Isaac has asked me to let you know that you're no longer welcome at the party. You have to leave." And
Oh, no.
like, what did we do? Like, what happened? I said, "Oh, well, your friend has hit on Isaac's girlfriend."
Oh.
Like, we didn't even know Isaac had a girlfriend. Like, who is it? Well, it turned out this girl was the masseuse for the band. Just
which that like, right there throws up a few red flags.
Yes, a little bit. And nothing against masseuses.
Of course.
Seemed a little sketchy. Well, our friend who was, getting friendly with the masseuse, who happened to be Isaac's girl.
Yeah.
He walks up to, I'm going to say this. It's okay to cuss?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. He walks up in this conversation with me and my buddy and the security guy. He's like, "What's going on?" Because Isaac had gone over there and like got in his face.
Yeah.
And the guy said, "Well, that's Isaac's girl. Girl, you shouldn't be talking to her. You're not welcome anymore." And this guy looks at the security man, and I'll never forget it in my entire life, says, "Who the fuck is Isaac?" He didn't even know who Modest Mouse was. He was just along because he was a beer guy.
Yeah.
And there's more to the story, but I'll drop it there. It was just a phenomenally bizarre evening that was highlighted by one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to in my entire. Modest Mouse killed it. They were awesome, and I got to watch it from the stage and then get drunk with Isaac.
Yeah, man.
And hear about his,
I guess if you think that people are trying to kill you, it makes you put on a good show, maybe.
Well, it involved the CIA. There was something about some stuff in his kitchen cabinets that was going on. It was
man.
I'd give anything to have it recorded. It's one of my favorite moments of my entire life. So that would be my answer. I got to drink beers with Win Butler after the Trees Arcade Fire show at what is now Off the Record. That was awesome. This was before he was all creepy.
Yeah.
Or before people knew he was all creepy. That was kind of awesome. I spent an evening with Trackstar, the DJ from Run the Jewels, and I'm a huge Run the Jewels guy.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So I've been lucky. I've been fortunate to be in some really good spots for some shows. Really.
That's great. That's great. Joe, do you have any?
I'm going to keep most to myself. Certainly none as exotic as stories. One that's kind of surreal to me, but only because of the passage of time, is through my friendship with people at the common table back in the day.
Yeah.
I actually had Mark Rebier play my housewarming party.
Oh, wow.
When my wife and I, moved into our new place.
Yeah, I bet that was cool.
And now looking back, you're going, oh my God, that was pretty crazy. And what's funny about it is I think I have approximately one picture of Mark. So it's one of those that at least we got one.
That's great. I have a similar story where I was running at sound for a little coffee shop in Deep Ellum, and Leon Bridges was one of the players that one of the people that performed at this open mic night to about 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's headlining Dickies Arena. So you just goes to show you never know. You got to go out and see live local music because you never know.
Yeah, Corey turned me on to Leon Bridges. I actually saw him at Dada back in the day for probably, was that Dada, Corey, about 200 people or so maybe?
He played the common table twice. Leon did. I mean, Leon did, Mark Rebia did, Maren Morris did.
Yeah.
We had, I mean, it just goes to show you, if you want to go see good live music in Dallas, you can.
And you never know who the next person going to blow up is. Yeah. Yeah, for
Correct.
sure.
Yeah. Now that's a big part of what's cool about some of these smaller venues is they're great places to, for example, Delta Spirit I used to be into, right?
Mm.
We, Matthew Logan Vasquez came through, and it kind of brings back memories of, oh, hey, where was I when I was listening to Delta Spirit? But it's also, like you just brought up, it's a great place to find new and emerging artists before they blow up, and you end up having to pay $300 to go see them.
For sure.
And I do think Dallas gets. I don't think that the DFW scene as a whole gets enough credit for the people that come out of it. It is, if you look at a list, and I'm not talking about forever, even in the last 10 years, the number of people that have come out of here and that have become important national musicians is impressive. And, it makes me wish, not for financial reasons, but just for the love of the music scene, that people would go out more often and see some of these people that they don't know about yet, because sometimes that's the best show you go to.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have discovered, sad to admit it, but somebody drugged me to an Avid Brothers concert at the Granada years ago. So it wasn't like they were unknowns. I just didn't know them.
Yeah.
And I went to that, and I have found I love the Avid Brothers the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of my, top 20, 30 bands I've ever seen, and I just went on a whim. Gregory Alan Isakov is another one that Joe took me to the show. I didn't know Gregory Alan Isakov, so now just slipped through my deal. Guy was amazing. Now I listen to his music all the time. If you really love music, and I went through a phase in my life, you have kids or you get busy working or whatever, it's easy to stop going.
Yeah.
But if you love it, go back, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing that makes you feel the way the concert does. And a smaller one, to me, is more rewarding than a bigger one 9 out of 10 times.
100%. Well, I always end these podcasts by asking what your dream gig is. And, what are your dreams for Jambaloo? What are your dreams for the Mullen Mullen Music Project going forward?
I mean, there's a lot of the dreams are already coming true, to be honest with you. Everything's happened so quickly, but the local partners that we already have in place, Shane and I are super excited about the future. And anyone who knows us knows that when we set our minds to do something, we do it right. So I think people are going to really have a good time. Look, at the end of the day, Shane and I are picking up the tab and inviting people to come check out some great shows. Mm-hmm. But Corey and his team are the ones really pulling the weight on, for that size business to have that many shows in multiple locations is going to take a huge effort from them that we're incredibly appreciative of. And as far as the music project goes, part of what's so cool about this and about Corey and I being friends is we talk about things.
Yeah.
5 times a week, probably. And so there's been a lot of things that weren't part of our initial discussions about the project and what we were going to try to accomplish. And one of those was the live stream setup that we put in at Tulips. Mm-hmm. That wasn't initially discussed, and just with us talking and communicating, we started saying, hey, how cool would it be to have some good video capability, and how could we help local artists as far as having content to put out there to promote themselves, and also obviously to help the venue. And that was something we just decided to expand and do. And so these discussions will continue. Like I said, we're going to get feedback from people that attend Jambaloo, feedback from the people at the symposium, and we're just excited about the future. I think there's a lot of like-minded people involved in this project that have come together at the right time to do some cool stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
I'll answer your question more directly than Joe.
Sure.
I think some part of what I'm doing now is my dream gig, and that sounds like a bullshit answer, but
no, not at all.
I mean, I'm not young. I've done a lot of other things. I've lived a life where I've basically done the things that I wanted to do from a work standpoint. I've never really worked for anyone other than the Dallas Morning News for 2 years. So that's why I was super hesitant to come to Spune. But the reason I'm here is because I love music.
Yeah.
And to then walk in the door and within the first month of being here have this kind of materialize out of nowhere is pretty awesome. We're not at dream gig status by any stretch. There's, it's still work, and there's still a lot of it that's hard and that frustrates me just like anyone else. But what we have in front of us here, I don't know that I would change places with many people right now. I really love this, and I really love the fact that there is a chance to do something that matters and that really makes a difference. And that would not be possible if it was not for the very bizarre and unique combination of Spune and my longtime friendship with those people, and Mullen and Mullen and my longtime friendship with those people. So, if we can just do what we want to do and execute on things, I think this could be my dream job. I hope it is. I think that what we've started can become something that really matters. Like in 2 or 3 years, I hope we do this again, and you're like, "Hey, you weren't kidding! Like this shit is crazy!"
Yeah. Well, I'm ready. Let's.
And I think it's a roadmap, Chris, for private businesses to help artists.
Sure.
And so on a broader level, I mean, obviously Shane and I can't tackle nationwide problems. We're going to focus here in our backyard on what we can do to help. But I think what we're seeing, the initial results are encouraging that private business can help promote the music scene, and hopefully people in some other cities see what's going on and take that on.
And I would add to that
go ahead, Corey.
I think something that's important here is there is so many businesses, especially larger businesses, that give mountains of money to the fine arts. I mean, there's not a broke ass symphony or opera in America. Those people has plaques on the wall of people who have given them more than $10,000, and it's not 1 or 2 plaques, and there's some bigger plaques too.
Yeah,
it is so unusual for an independent music promoter, and it is. I'm sorry if you think that the symphony is any more or less of art than a rock and roll band or a hip hop band, then I staunchly disagree with you and will argue with you until I pass out. And businesses and art need support at all levels, not just the fine art levels. Those are the people that need it the least.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anybody, whether it's a doctor or a law firm or a car dealership or whatever, to go out and support independent art at the small level, not at the highest level.
Well, as a local musician, I greatly appreciate what y'all are doing, and I'm looking forward to Jambaloo. So Jambaloo is February 1st through 8th. The symposium is at Tulips on the 1st, and then you got free shows all week at Tulips and Dada and Deep Ellum and Ferris Wheelers and Andy's in Denton. Is that correct?
More to come.
Great. Well, Corey, Joe, I really appreciate y'all coming on the podcast. This has been a fun conversation, and I really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, well, thank you too.
All right, there they go. Big thanks to Corey and Joe from Mullen Mullen and Spune. Y'all, please be sure to check out Jambaloo. You have no excuse not to go. It's a full week of shows. No matter where you're at in the Metroplex, you're within 20-30 minutes of a really awesome show that's totally free. Really great bands, really great venues. So please go check it out. Let's help support the local music scene. Again, if you're a fan of the Strangest Gig podcast, you can really help us out by spreading the good word. Tell a friend, send them a link, let them know that we're here. If you yourself are a musician with a really compelling Strange Gig story, hit me up. Let's get you on the podcast. And until next time, just remember, a gig's a gig, right?